economic slump, where she worked tirelessly to make ends meet, she never deferred on any of her payments. She's a strong woman working for her community. She's an entrepreneur, a great employer, taxpayer, and a community leader. It's my great pleasure and honor to welcome Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, Manisha. And thank you so much for inviting me to be here to introduce myself to all of you. I'm really honored to be here. I have lived in Northern Virginia for 35 years. As Manisha said, I came with my husband and we started a real estate business 35 years ago and raised a family. We had 3 young sons and we lived in Fairfax County. We owned a home there. And we were going along just swimmingly, growing a business, growing a family, and until 1994 when my husband unexpectedly got leukemia and we lost him. So suddenly, here I am, a single mom of 3 little boys, 9, 10, and 13, the owner of a family real estate business, a small business, right in the middle of a recession. So things were pretty tough in those years, but we worked hard. We had family and friends who surrounded us and helped us, and we made it through those difficult times. And life is good for our family. My 3 little boys are now 3 big men. They're all starting businesses of their own, so we are a family of small businesses. We have 2 tech startups. My youngest son is in New York with a real estate company of his own, and then, of course, I still have my business that is growing and successful. So I'm very proud of my family, and I know that we had help along the way. But there are too many families today who are still struggling from the most recent recession. And we have an economy that, although it's come back a long way, is still a little bit out of balance. So we need to regrow our middle class. We need to focus on our small businesses, our entrepreneurs, and we need to make sure that they also participate in the recovery. I think one of the biggest dangers to our country today is the great divide that we're seeing between rich and poor, young and old, urban versus rural. We need to be very, very careful. We need to heal this divide. And the reason I feel so perfectly experienced to do that is I did grow up in Illinois. I grew up on a farm in the Midwest. I lived my first 20 years there. I understand that way of life. The 10th district is half rural, half urban, suburban. When we moved here, I lived in the urban, suburban part of the district. So I have lived and experienced both sides of the 10th district, and I really believe that we need to heal the divide. This is not a zero-sum game. The people on Capitol Hill are good, well-intentioned people. We need to learn to listen to one another. We need to work together, and we need to move this country forward. I'm running because Congress is broken, hasn't passed a budget in 6 years. That does not happen in the private sector. We need a government that works. We need to be willing to talk to everyone to solve problems. And I want to make that happen. I also am a big supporter of comprehensive immigration reform. I really do believe we need to deal with our immigration issues in a comprehensive way, not only securing the border, but doing that first, and then dealing with our 11 million undocumented immigrants that are here in this country, and expanding the H-1N1 visa program. So I'll answer that question right now. I also, thank you.
All right, I apologize for that ambient noise. Maybe somebody from the hotel can cure that. You're not responsible for that. You did answer the HB 1 question. What about the legislation that about the Pakistani State Sponsor of Terrorism Designation Act of 2016? Are you familiar with that, and what is your position?
I'm briefly familiar with it, but I will talk to the bigger issue. We live in an increasingly complicated world, And we do, the dangers are real. And we have to be very serious about how we approach this. We cannot allow other countries to be sponsoring terrorism. We have to be vigilant. We have to work with our allies and put pressure on these countries not to do that. So I would not, however, be ready to put Pakistan in a separate status as a state sponsor of terrorism yet, but we do need to continue to keep pressure on them to make sure that they're not sponsoring terrorist activities.
Here's my turn to be entrepreneurial in the question. Very well, the Democrats, if you should be elected, Barbara Comstock is the Republican, you might still be in the minority. How effective can you be if you're in the minority? And what would you say to people who'd say, I want to vote for somebody who's in the majority that can get something done? Because the speaker and the majority leader of the majority party control the flow of legislation. If you should be elected, you'd still be in the minority. How can you be effective?
Well, I do believe that one person can make a difference. And that assumes that the polarization continues. One of the main reasons I'm doing this is to try to go to Congress and end that polarization, to work across the aisle. One of the first things I do is make an appointment with every single person in the Republican caucus and have a sit down with them and start to develop relationships. Relationships help you move things forward. We have common ground. We have to work. I think one of the most dangerous things that contributes to polarization is gerrymandering districts. And I would speak out strongly for independent redistricting. There are 5 states that do it. More states need to. More districts need to look like the 10th district, which is about a 50-50 district. And that would pull everyone back to the center and send members to Congress who can talk to one another. But on both sides, we have members that are so polarized because they come from districts that are so tightly drawn in one extreme or the other. That has to stop. That's a threat to our democracy.
Tell me which committees you don't always get the committees you like, but what committees, because it sends a signal to the constituents you want to represent, do you want to be on?
Okay, I'm gonna send a flyer here.
It's not an unfair question at all. It's a
It's
very legitimate question because, and it's not a gotcha question. It's a question of you have certain preferences. Your constituents maybe object to your preferences, but they'd like to know what they are.
It's a fair question, although a little presumptuous to be asking before I win, but we'll take a stab at it.
Well, I thought you would be presumptuous about winning. Jerry Connery's on a foreign
I'll tell you what I'm
affairs.
going to
How about
ask
that?
for. I'll tell you what I'm going to ask for, and I may not get it. But there is an opening for a freshman Democrat on the Appropriations Committee. Virginia had 2 appropriators, in Jim Moran and Frank Wolf. We now have none. The region also has Barbara Mikulski on the Appropriations Committee, and she is retiring. I think we need an appropriator in Virginia, and I'm going to ask for it. Now, if that doesn't work out, of course, transportation is a big issue in Northern Virginia, and the Transportation Committee would be a really good option. Education. I'm a lifelong believer and supporter of education, and I believe education is the key to so much that an education committee would be a good option.
You recovered very nicely. Final question, and I will not ask the same question to the state candidates, but it is dear to my heart, and I want to especially ask Democrats. There's a vote for statehood for the District of Columbia to be the 51st state. Will you vote yes or no?
Yes. Yeah, unequivocally. I would always vote for expanding voting rights, always. I mean, I think we need, no voter should not have the right to vote.
Okay. Thank you very much. the flower presentation. Now we're going back to the Commonwealth of Virginia, since we don't have any other federal candidates. Who do we have?